All right, yeah, thanks for tuning back in. In this video, I'm going to be doing a little bit of, it's just springtime maintenance. I got the Supercharger, running probably fall of last year, and then I kind of did some testing and tweaking, and then we had a bunch of snowstorms, and I kind of just drove it all winter. And there's a couple things it needs. It's overheating, and that's kind of what we're working on today. I also want to work on the snout a little bit. You can see I'm fighting an oil leak, which I have an idea. I have a whole spare Supercharger. Remember. So I'm just going to pull my spare snout and rotor pack out. We're going to do that, and then we might drop a pulley size. But right now, what I'm working on is my overheating issue. For nearly all winter, and whenever it's warm out, the temperature gets hot. It gets to around 210, 215, and then when you're sitting in traffic, it just gets hotter and hotter. And I actually had the temp gauge peg on me this week, so I'm like, well, what's going on? So first I started simple. I replaced the radiator cap. That didn't work. I just did the thermostat. That didn't work. In addition, my upper hose is vacuuming down. I'm trying to figure out what's going on there. I've got a new water pump in there. So now I'm thinking, well, there's another video out there where they tell you to check this fuse. So I checked the fuse. I guess I should have started there, but it was bad. The fuse was blown. So I went to the store, replaced the fuse. The fan started working, the air conditioning fan. The fan came on when the AC turned on, and everything was operating normally. But then I drove it maybe 15 minutes, and it blew again. So right now what I did is I removed the fan, and there's the connector right there for the fan. So I'm just going to, and then I put a new fuse in. So now I'm just going to, since the fan doesn't work anyway, and I've been driving it that way for months and months, I'm going to leave it unplugged. I'm going to leave it unplugged and see if the fuse blows again, because I have a sneaking suspicion that this fuse also powers other things, because I'm having a couple other issues with the car. Specifically the O2 heaters, O2 sensor. So, and a couple other issues as well electrically. But I've got the fan out, and you can see there's this little spring washer that these marks were lined up, from some inspector at the Ford plant. It says Fomoco right there, so this must be the original. I don't remember changing the fan. I do remember messing with this module, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe I think I remember replacing this. I'm not sure what else it might be besides the actual fan motor itself. Here it is here. I'm tempted to take this apart and inspect in here, but I mean it spins and everything, but I wonder if it's drawing too much amperage, if it's bad and it's drawing too much amperage, and that's why the fuse is blowing. But so what I did is I checked. I have continuity to ground, 0 ohms, and then I have solid 12 volts. So I don't think it's a wiring issue, unless I have a short somewhere here. Unless I have a short somewhere. This goes into that loom, and I'm guessing into here somewhere, down in there. And I don't want to. What am I supposed to do? Take this whole front end off and check back? I've never had an issue like that. I think that we're just going to try replacing the fan first and see if we can do it. But now that I've got a new fuse in there with no fan plugged in, I'm going to do some test driving and see if it stays intact and doesn't blow, and that would kind of confirm, all right, it is the fan unit itself. So. Which my research is saying that's a dedicated fan fuse, but I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen a detailed wiring diagram. See, the hose vacuumed down again. This is like vacuumed shut. I think maybe the hose is just bad. I ordered a brand new one, $25 for a Motorcraft one, so that's coming. And my new fan is coming. You can see I pulled, put you in there. You can see I pulled the blades right out of the fan. And there's no motor in there either. So it's just the housing, and you need the housing to bolt your power steering and degas bottle to. But I did some test driving. I took it around town. I took it on the highway. It holds at 180 on the highway real nice, but when you get into traffic, it overheats. But you can see the fuse is still good. So with the fan disconnected, there's the connector down there. With the fan disconnected, it doesn't blow. So that tells me that you know, if there was a short with, you know, here's the, where'd she go? Here it is. This is the connector. So if there was a short on the vehicle side of the harness, you know, from this connector this way, you know, the vehicle side, with the fuse plugged in, the fuse would still blow. But since it's not blown, that kind of points me to the other side of that connector, which is that and that. So that's why we're replacing that. And then so we just have to wait for those parts. But while we're waiting, I also noticed, and I've been hearing like a air suction noise, and the car will kind of buck gently while I'm driving. And when the engine was idling, this is our Supercharger PCV line on the stock Crown Vic, or, you know, Panthers. This is a hard plastic line. It's a hard line that clips into your PCV valve. I just put a 5/8 heater hose, and it worked. But now I believe, since it's warm out and since I've been driving it for all winter long, I think that this is just not intended for vacuum like that, and it's sucking right down. It's sucking right down, and I wonder if, as the throttle is changing and the vacuum is changing within the you know, intake system, that this is just flexing, and that's might be what my bucking is. So I ordered some rigid silicone performance vacuum hose. So 5/8 I ordered a little bit, and then the same thing with our 3/8 lines. You can see that this bend is the main feed, and we're feeding the evap and we're feeding the brake booster. And I'm thinking that the same thing is probably happening. This is just when it's nice and hot. I bet you this is just vacuuming down, because the brakes work fine, luckily. But I believe I'm getting an evap code. Well, sorry, not an evap code, but I'm getting an evap. The readiness monitor won't ready. So I believe that's probably the reason. We're just not getting enough airflow to hit that switch on the tank. There's a pressure switch on the tank. So while I'm waiting for my new line, my new vacuum lines, my new radiator hose, and my new fan assembly, I want to work on the snout. So if you remember, this port here used to be where I was feeding the water methanol, and so that means that it was prior to the blower rotors, which means that the methanol was going through the supercharger screws. And if we take this off, the Teflon coating all wore off. It got blown off of the rotor, so I've basically just got bare rotors in here now. And I moved the water methanol line to twin nozzles. On the, you know, I'll show you in there. So when we take it apart, I'll show you. But now that our water meth is injecting after the rotors and not going through the supercharger, I want to replace the rotor pack, and then I want to get my new snout on there as well. And you can see that we had to machine. I machined out these reinforcing ribs, and I did that because I didn't realize. You can see how I've got the alternator. The stud used to go straight up, and that would hit. So that's why I was fighting that during fabrication. But then I just was like kicking myself, because I'm like, you dummy! You can just take the alternator apart and clock it a third of the rotation, because, you know, there's actually 3 different places you can put this. So I just rotated it one set of bolt holes. You know, I clocked it one set, you know, clockwise, and now it clears. So I can, but there is still a big foot. There's a big foot on the, I'll show you. Well, we should be able to get it going again. So I want to get my other supercharger out. Okay, here it is here. This is my spare supercharger. I pulled two at the junkyard. The one that's on the car, if you remember, is off of a 2001 Pontiac Grand Prix GTP. This one is off of a 2000 Pontiac Grand Prix GTP. So this thing is 23 years old, which is crazy to think about, but I think it's got a little life left in it. But this would be stock right off of the Pontiac. It's a transverse engine, so it would be mounted this way, and the throttle body's right here, but I took that off. So really all I want is, we gotta take these screws out. It's gonna stink like that stinky oil, but I want the snout, and then I want there's a gear assembly in here, and then this is the rotor assembly that will all slide out. And I'll show that to you here. If I flip it upside down, you can see that there's our rotors, and you can see that there is still Teflon coating on there, but it's a little bit in a couple spots worn off. But then you can also see this chunk, I believe we have to mill that chunk off, so it will not interfere with our alternator. And what I had done is I had machined these ribs off, and I really modified the other one, and I ended up welding in a piece of this stuff, this aluminum angle iron. But I don't think we need to do that, and that will be good, because it won't expose us to a possible leak path. There's no oil down here. This is just a big, you know, reinforcing rib for a bolt hole for the stock Pontiac. So it would be nice to have 1, 2, 3 mounting bolts, but we're just relying on these two, and it's been fine. So let's get this disassembled. All right, here it is. Here's the assembly I wanted. We took it out of the housing. It's all this part I think I'm going to leave alone. I'll hang on to it though, but this is what I want, and you can see that we're draining the stinky oil. I just used a block of wood and a hammer and separated it a little bit, so we're just going to let that stink drain out of there, and then we got to disassemble this with a press, a hydraulic press, and then I'm going to sandblast it. All right, I just got a couple candles going because that oil stinks, but you can see we got back from the shop. I pressed the pulley off and got all the bearings out. There's this nylon coupler. Here's the coupler itself that kind of presses onto this knurled portion. So you press that out, and then also there's a bearing that rides here. Here's your oil seal clip. There's a video online on how to do this. It's a pretty good one. I think it's I'll put his description. Great something racing, or I forget, but he did a nice job, and I just kind of followed along with him. So, and then I did I sandblasted the housing, you know, so I took it all apart. Here's where the one bearing in your oil seal goes, and then down there is where your other bearing and spring goes, and you can see I cleaned it all up, sandblasted it. So now this is the part I was talking about. This area, I believe I need to remove. I think I need to remove it to about here to clear the alternator. I mean, I guess I could use a hacksaw if I really wanted to, but I have access to a machine shop, so I'm gonna mill this chunk out. All right, so so all the parts that are junk, I guess I'll make a little junk pile. There. This I'm not sure if we'll need, depending on the new seal, but we got the shaft, the spring, the drive. So our kit will come with a new coupler, a new seal, 2 new bearings, some oil. It comes with a new fill plug, so we don't got to worry about this old one. And then, yeah, so we're waiting for those parts. So we're kind of in waiting mode now. I want to mask this off, and we're gonna paint this. But yeah, so let's just kind of wait for parts, and I'll catch up with you in maybe a couple days when they come in. So hang on. So I'm also interested in this new snout, because with the blue one out on the car, I did a lot of welding to it, and then also this housing. What I did was I just took a big bandsaw and chopped it off right about here, and then I welded four, I think they were about a 1/2 inch thick piece of aluminum. I welded four kind of blocks, and then I drilled and tapped for the 4 holes for the factory throttle elbow. And then also what I did was this one still has the silencing ports. There's a port here and a port here, but on the one out of the car, I welded those shut. So because I did a lot of welding on the snout and the housing, I'm thinking that I got a little warpage. And this one, the snout definitely warped. This one I put on a surface plate, and it's perfectly flat. But I haven't done any welding. The other one, it was a little warped, and perhaps that's why I'm getting that oil leakage. So now that it's springtime, that's kind of another reason why I'm doing this. I wanna put these parts on that hopefully aren't warped. At least this one. I hope the housing isn't too warped. But I also hear like a growling sound when I'm at idle. I hear like a growling sound, and I'm wondering if that's because I have a little warpage in the assembly and something is rubbing, you know. So I'm hoping that goes away when I put my fresh snout and my fresh rotor pack. And you can see it's got carbon on it, but right here you can see the Teflon coating is still intact, you know. So I on the other one, I'll show you when I take it off, it's gone. Yeah, there ain't no more coating on there. So I'm hoping that I'll get a little bit more, you know, responsiveness and boost with that rotor pack. I got back from the machine shop, and I milled that block off. So it goes on the car like this. And on our previous one, we had milled this reinforcing rib off and exposed the inside to, you know, the environment. So we had to weld in that angle iron. But this one you can see is still untouched. So I'm going to go fit check this out on the car right now, and I think it'll be all right. This is, you know, farther to the the driver's side of the car. The alternator is, so that's not going to hit. But right here, I'm worried about this corner. And if it does hit, I'm thinking we can maybe just file a chamfer there. So let's go out on the car, and we're gonna fit check this. So I'm gonna pull I've got the ZZP modular system, so I'm just gonna take the belt off, the pulley off, the tensioner off, and then I'm gonna take the main serpentine belt out, and then we gotta remove the alternator, and then we'll be able to take these bolts out and get the snout out. And one thing I also wanted to note was this little breather. So the 2001 Supercharger just had a plug on the end of the shaft, but the 2000 had this little thread-in breather with I think it's like a brass or bronze like a screen. And then I noticed on the shaft itself there's 2 holes there and there, and if you blow in the threaded area, the air comes out here. So this is like a crankcase event, essentially, or maybe a gear case event. Whereas I think that's a good idea. The other one didn't have that, and perhaps that's why it started leaking out of these faces, because it was being pressurized from the heat. And also, I made a mistake. On the other one, I sandblasted this mating face, which I probably shouldn't have done. This one, I left it alone. I did get the sandblaster like right there on that corner, and right in there a little bit when I was sandblasting out this little pocket, but I would say 97% of our surface is still good. Plus I also checked it again on the surface plate. It's perfectly flat, so I'm hoping that this will go right on. So let's go fit check. Okay, so I've just done a dry fit here. I've got there's our countersunk There's our countersunk tensioner bracket that utilizes the alternator mounting bolt. There's the other mounting bolt. We're flush against the block, and we have our reinforcement plates just set in place, and you can see it fits very nicely. Except I just wanna add like I said, a chamfer, and that'll be perfect. That turned out very good. I'm very happy with that. This looks nice with the how I used I found a nice sharp end mill. It was a 13/16, so that's a nice radius. And then over here, like I was saying, it's close, but man, like it was designed for it, huh, boys? So let's go file that. We're just gonna put maybe 25 degree angle on here, and then we're gonna wash it and get it into paint. So I'm gonna do 2 coats primer, 2 coats. This is the they have a brighter blue and a deeper blue. I like the deeper blue better, so it matches the Ford logo, you know. So I will catch up with you later. It's starting to rain here. I gotta go. All right, so here's the original snout to our supercharger, and you can see how we welded in that piece of angle iron, and then it started leaking because I made a mistake welding it. And you can see just inside there's the angle iron there, and it worked, but I wanted to make an improvement, so I pulled the modular system off. And remember how I told you I was going to do Ford blue? Well, I ran out of Ford blue, so ready, set, surprise. Body paint match I did. So this is the same paint coat as the car. So we're going to have a blue supercharger and a red snout, and then here's the rotor pack. And then you can see here's our old rotor pack, and then this is the this is the 2000 body with a 2001 rotor pack, and then this snout will just stay with it, you know. So this will be my spare. This is my spare setup, and then my good setup will have basically the only thing from the 2001 will be the housing. So let me get it back together, but I want to kind of go back to the cooling issue. I found the true cause. So the cause was not the fan. I'll show that to you in a second. Yeah, back to the cooling issue here real quick. So you can see I basically took the battery out, took the battery tray out, took the fuse junction block here apart. I found fuse 102, which it's up here in the top right. It's a 50 amp, and then there's a dark red with a black stripe. And this fuse kept blowing even with the fan unplugged. So even with the fan, I mean, there it is over there. You know, there's the fan. I didn't even have it in the car, so that told me that, well, no, actually the short is in the vehicle harness. So I just started this dissecting the harness, and it wasn't too bad, but I gotta put it all back together now. But I did find see? So this is coming out of the fuse box, and there's the damage right there. So this is the problem right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut maybe, you know, this 3-inch section out and just splice it back together. And then you can see I pulled the connector. Here's the other end of it, you know. So this is the connector, and the ground wire looked a little damaged. Here it is here. So this is the ground wire, and you can see it looked like it kind of got hot, and plus it just pulled right out of the connector. So I have a new pigtail coming. And then the red wire, there's that red wire right there that I snipped. that little one comes from the ECU. So you just have solid 12 volts ground, and then this is the control wire from the ECU. So let me put this all back together with a new fuse, and then we gotta wait for my new pigtail that'll be here on Monday. But we can do a little bit more. You just saw the snout. I've got the rotor pack and everything all set to go. I re-ran some silicone vacuum lines, so those should hopefully withstand the vacuum and the heat a little bit better, and maybe help us with our EGR. Not EGR, our evap code. So let's get back to work here. All right, so I've got it mostly back together again. I put our new fan in, bolted the power steering, filled it back up with coolant. You can see we ran our new wires. So this is, all I did was cut the damage out of the original wire. Here's the control wire that goes to the ECU, and then this is the original ground wire, and then I did run a brand new one right here, and that goes right to the negative. I have this is for my ham radio. I've got just a bunch of extra stuff, so this is just a ground wire I added for the engine and stuff like that. Oh, I broke my fuse holder. Crap. For the stereo. But that's okay. All right, so you can see it looks pretty good, but now I want to put the alternator back on. And I just hosed this all out. I was a big dummy. I filed this corner. You dope. It was supposed to be this corner. So I got my Dremel and I just polished it a little. So the alternator remember, it rubbed right there. You can see there's a little, it's wet from, I just hosed out all the dust. But and then also I want to show you in here. You can see there's a dual nozzle water meth system. So I have every, the front 4 and then the rear 4 intake runners get a nozzle. And I put a loop in the line so I could fully insert it into each fitting. If I had a leak where I tried just putting a straight section and it was the wrong length and it was only engaging one fitting and the other fitting would only engage halfway, so it would leak a lot. So that's coming from our little solenoid here, and that goes around the back into the intake there. So I just kind of wanted to show you that. So now we're going to put the alternator back on and get our tensioner and belts and stuff. All right, it's all back together. Get batteries back in, got our new fan. So what did we do? We got a new rotor pack, a new snout, and the advantage there is, number 1, we have a vented gear case now. Number 2, we still have all of our enforcing ribs. We had no welding, we had no warpage. Since the angle iron is gone, we've actually gained a little oil capacity, so that's good. We changed over to our silicone lines. It's got a new upper radiator hose, new thermostat, new radiator cap, the new fan. Then we repaired the damaged shorted wire and ran a new ground wire. And then we're just going to hook this up to our pigtail when it comes. So yeah, we're just going to let the sealant dry a little bit more and fill it with oil. So now I want to diagnose another circuit.